Hello. I have been asked several times, what is a human design reading? And they're a wee bit different. Okay, they're a lot different than astrology readings, but we fall under some of the same categories. So, what exactly is human design? Human design is the culmination, let's say, of astrology and I Ching, which is Eastern philosophies, Western philosophies, all coming together to create this chart of who we are, what we're meant to be, how the stars were aligned at our time of birth. But nothing is set in stone. So a lot of times we have people I've heard will get stuck like, well, I'm this type of energy type. So I'm like this and I'm like that. You don't have to be anything specific. It's simply stating that there are things within the chart that you probably resonate a lot with that you're like, oh, that's right. But with everything in life, there are what I like to call the superpowers, and there are also the shadows. So let's dive a little deeper into what a human design reading really is. So, I'm going to go through my personal chart. So, just to give you a look at it, the five energy types, the nine centers, where they came from, the profiles, authority, gates, channels, and then I'll put in a little bit about me. That way, you have some of that. Okay, so when you download your chart off of my site, Lotus Sage Coaching, and there will be up at the top a place that says free chart, feel free to click on that. It will ask you for like your email, things like that. Don't worry, I'm not sending you anything. It's just part of the system that I have. And this will actually show you what type you are, the strategy, your authority, all these different things that are all part of a human design reading. Now, one of the things that I like to do is kind of put in a video. It's about 5 minutes or so that I send to my clients beforehand. So when my client does a reading with me, I will send them a chart. I will, for them just to kind of look over, feel into, see how it feels with them. And then from there, I will send a video that has to do with your energy type and your strategy. So that way, when I'm in the 60-minute session, we can kind of move through that stuff a lot quicker. And it also allows you to ask questions if you need to. So I clear that out. Like I try to make that to where that's more like 5 minutes because honestly, I my focus is actually dealing more with the conditioning that we've had over the years to get us away from who we are and fixing that with my clients, helping them and supporting them to eliminate these conditionings that keep them from feeling themselves, to keep them from being who they are. I also work with some women on some sexual traumas that might have happened in the past, not really large ones, but we all have had sexual traumas. We've all had traumas. And so I help with that with my clients. And so for me, gates and channels and centers is where I like to focus because while we have shadows and superpowers in all these different sections, the type, the strategy, authority, our profile, our crosses. Even though we have all of those, I find that for me, I like to get into the nitty gritty of the chart. And I will explain a little bit more about that when we talk about profiles. Mine is a 4-1, and I will talk about that, and you'll understand why I like to get into the nitty gritties of things. So, as you can see on the chart on the left, the actual chart, you're going to have all your astrology things and the gate. So you have the sun, earth, north node, south node, all the way down to Pluto. And then Chiron is like a planetoid. So that's on the bottom. And each of these also I go through with my clients what each of these means so that you're not sitting going, well, what does the moon one mean for me? I will talk to you about what that means. I'll talk to you about what each of these numbers are in the sun. It says design on one side, personality on the other. I'll explain what that is so that all these things are really clear in the understanding of these things. So, let's move on to energy types. We have 5 energy types. We have the manifester. They're the ones that are going out there initiating. They are your entrepreneurs. They get these downloads and they go and they are ready to go. But the thing is that they get so focused on what they're doing, they forget about everybody else around them. And so their strategy is to inform. When you're going to go do something, let people around you know. Otherwise, they're going to ask you, and that's going to break your flow. So, if you personally are able to break your flow in a way that works for you by informing them, then they won't be breaking yours. And a lot of times, when your flow is broken, it can be very hard to get back in. And one of the things that comes up for manifestors is that they can get really angry when that flow is broken up. So, that's kind of like their shadow side. So, that is just a little bit on manifestors. They make up about 7% or so of the world population. Generators, you guys are about 37%. And your generators are your worker bees. You guys are the ones that are working those 9 to 5 jobs. You are out there getting it done. So a manifestor has an idea, a generator makes it happen. They're the ones who are getting out there, getting it done. And what happens, unfortunately, with generators is that they can get so set in working, and a lot of times in jobs that they actually really don't like, but they stay in it because they can do it. They have this sustainable power and energy that they can just go, 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 go. And so that helps them a lot. And so, but the thing is that where we really want our generators to be, we really want you guys to be doing work you love. So it's okay to be behind the scenes. We just want you to love your work. And the generator side is that when you don't love your work, you can get really frustrated. When things aren't working the way you need them to in your job, you can get frustrated. If you're not learning as quick as you did at the beginning, you can get frustrated. So keep that in mind. But when you get it done right, your superpower is satisfaction. You are excited, you're getting it done, you feel complete in what you're doing. So, manifesting generators, you are a mix of the manifestor and the generator. You make about 33%. And what's really interesting with the manifesting generator is I almost think of them as that entrepreneur, but then they get it all done too. So they start something, they finish it. Now, that doesn't always mean that's the case, but a manifesting generator, we call them in quantum the time bender because they can skip steps. They don't have to go through every little detail. So if you're a math person and and you, especially math teachers, and you're like, you need to show all your work, but the kid is getting all the right answers, you probably have a manifesting generator on your hand. They don't need to show all the work. They can skip steps. The problem that manifesting generators do is that they're not great about explaining it to other people that they skipped steps. But they're so good with their energy and they can just go, go, go. With both generator and manifesting generator, you have got to get all that energy out, though. That's a big thing. You are busy, busy, busy. And by the nighttime, you should be exhausted and ready for bed. That is how you will sleep the best. We call these two types sacral beings, and that is your life and workforce energy. And that is why you are able to work and work and work and work for so long. So that's those two types. A projector. I'm a projector. And a projector in quantum is called the orchestrator. The reason why we're called that is that we are here to guide and teach. And so you'll often find a lot of teachers are often projectors. They are leaders, but in a guiding sense. They love to help people. They can see the potential in somebody. And so sometimes if they're not careful, they can be too critical because they see that potential. Other times they come from a pure place of love and of just wanting the best for that person, of seeing who they believe they can be and just pushing them sometimes to do that. But here's the thing, a projector, along with the manifestor, you're open sacral, which means you don't have the same energy. You are not meant to work 9 to 5 jobs. You are meant to find jobs that work a little bit easier because you can't sustain that energy the same. And rest is incredibly important. So if you love your naps, if you are a nap person, you might be a projector. So, those are just a few things. A big part of being a projector also is that you really feel this. I don't want to say a need, but it kind of is this need to be seen and heard. That's where the guiding comes in. But you have to wait for people to recognize you, for people to invite you to be seen and to be heard. And when this doesn't happen, it can be incredibly difficult on a projector. And our shadow is bitterness. If you hear somebody saying it's not fair a lot, this isn't fair what's happening. This isn't okay that this works out this way. I'm so bitter. I'm so bitter. Or they just have that emotion of bitterness that, you just don't want to be around the person because they're bitter. They're probably a projector. So kind of keep that in mind. And down the line, I will do some more videos that might speak a little bit more to some of these, just because we do have some, the projector and the reflector, that definitely have some issues in there that can just be a little difficult for other people, especially when we make up such a small percentage, and the projector is about 20%. So we projectors, we are here to guide, teach, coach. We are here to help people see the best in themselves and to move them into a place of who they are. Onto the reflector. A reflector, you work off the lunar cycle. You need a full lunar cycle to make decisions. You are not here to be quick. You need to take your time, don't rush, be content in this. Now, as somebody who was a real estate agent, this can be a really tough one for people, but if you can learn to support and also be encouraging and helpful with a reflector and kind and understand their need for time, this person is amazing. Now, they're only 1% of the population, but they're one of the most important percentages because they reflect back to us what we're doing in the world, how we actually should be, our ability to make decisions that last by not rushing, by taking the time to rest, to restore. They are a beautiful source and a beautiful person to be around. And so if you are a reflector, remember to take your time. Do not let other people tell you who you are or who you aren't. You need to take your time to reflect on who you are yourself. Okay? And of course, if anybody has questions, feel free to DM me. So our next one, we're talking centers. So the centers are based on the chakra system. And most people know the chakras. We have head, ajna, throat, heart, sacral or solar plexus, sacral, and then root. And so normally in the chakras, we start with the root is chakra 1 and we move our way up, and then there's actually more that keep going. So in 1781, I want to say, somewhere in that time frame, 1780s, there was a shift that happened within the Human Design Center. So we went from having 7 centers to having 9. So what split is the heart center split the G center and the will center. So now what we've got is where our values lie and where our lovability lies. So will center is value, G center is lovability. Our spleen and emotional solar plexus split from the solar plexus at this point, making it to where our solar plexus, which is our power center, changing us to how we need to see ourselves, how we focus, our fears, our superpowers, things like that, is in the spleen, where the emotional is really our creative side, is our emotions, how we handle our emotions. And so with each of these, we have these authorities in these also, which I will speak to. But the head center, each of these centers in this chart, you'll see they're all open. So this would be a representation of a reflector. They have all open centers. The basics that I'm going to tell you within the centers at this moment are going to be that if they are open, it means that you are taking in the outside world. You're learning from the external world how to behave within that center or those gates. And the gates are the numbers. You can see them in there. So, like in the head center, the gates are 64, 61, 63. And so, those being in there, those specific ones. So, when you're in a head center, you're in open space, you're taking in other things, okay, other external. When it's defined, you're really more internal. You are learning from your own experience, from the things you do. It's like you almost even kind of have an innate feeling for it already. And so those are actually your ways of learning. You don't need to necessarily learn it from the outside world. It doesn't mean that you have not been conditioned to learn things a certain way. And this is where our conditioning with our parents, with society, with our community, even our ancestral lineage, our grandparents, that is where all of the conditioning of how we are supposed to be moves us away from who we are, often comes from our open centers. And so when I work with clients on clearing the energy and emotional blocks that come from these conditionings, we often work in the centers that are more open. Also, this I work with the gates and the channels specifically to help my clients with those. So that is just a brief on the centers. Also, most readings are about 60 minutes. So you can see I'm trying to go through this kind of quick, so that you're kind of getting a basic idea. And we should be done here shortly. So, profiles. I love the profiles, they're part of my favorites. And it is no surprise that I am a line one. I am a researcher, investigator, get down to the nitty gritty, can't handle anything but the truth. So, I will dive until I feel confident that I have the truth. That is a line one. We are often quiet. We don't, in the sense that we don't want, we want to spend our time researching. We want to really understand what's happening with us, and we will keep going and going. So, just a quick thing, lines 1 through 3 are going to be interpersonal, which means they are inside of us, what we need to experience. Lines 4 through 6 are intrapersonal, which means they have to do with our community, the people around us, external. So, just want to kind of keep that in there. So, the reason on a lot of these, we have quantum names, which is what Ra was working on before he passed away with Karen Curry Parker, and she finished doing this work. She is a phenomenal teacher and explainer. So if you want to get any other information other than from me, feel free to reach out to me also. If you find human design really interesting and you want to get certified, let me know. She is who I went through. But we have quantum, and we have also the other one is traditional. So you'll find sometimes the wording of the traditional is more of a shadow feel of it, where in the quantum, we're really focusing on the positive moving forward. So in this one, the quantum is you are a resource for the people around you. You are a resource for yourself. You are focused. You get things done. And you probably are somebody who really likes organization. Line 2, the hermit versus the responder. The shadow side of it is you can just disappear. You can just go away and you won't come out. You're like, God, I just need space. I need space. But the space doesn't stop. Where really what we're looking for with the responder for line 2, and this is where you excel, is you will retreat for a while into who you are, and you will focus on the things that you've learned, which is a great thing. You've had some experiences, you're taking it in. Awesome. You retreat, you reflect, and then when you're ready, or when the people around you are ready, you come out and you're ready to speak to that. Line 3, the martyr or the explorer. And the explorer is so much better. You are an experiential person. You have to experience things by yourself. I remember saying to my mom when I was a teenager, and she's like, why can't you learn from my mistakes? And I said, I must learn everything on my own. Now, I'm not a line 3. I was a teenager, but this is the idea of a line 3. You have to experience everything. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is a mistake. And that's one of the things I want to really get clear with line 3 is in school, schools are not meant for line threes or line sixes, really, because you guys have to experience everything. And when you take tests, it's wrong, it's this, it's that. No, you're just experiencing it. So don't let yourself get caught up in this idea of you're always wrong or you're making a mistake with something you've done. We really want you to focus on experiencing so many things so that when you get older, you can talk about those things. You can talk about your experiences because that's what you're here to do. Now, on the martyr side, it's you're told over and over again so many times you're making mistakes, you're this or that, that you end up just doing everything for everybody else. You become a martyr. You're not doing things for your own understanding, you're doing it for everyone else. And so that's kind of where that comes from. That's the shadow side. Line four, the stabilizer. And I love this word, the stabilizer. I am a line four, but what it means is that we stabilize our community. So, like I said, this is an interpersonal line now, and this is about our community, our family, the people around us. We stabilize. We are all about safety and security. The issues were to a almost an extreme at times. We have to have control. We need to know that everybody's okay. The people we love, we have to make sure that they're okay, they're safe. But in our best form, we stabilize the group. We are organized. We have some control, but we know when to let go. We know when to prepare and we know when to let go of that preparation. So this is a beautiful place, a line four. Not that I'm, biased because I'm a line four, but and everybody has two lines, by the way, just to be clear. Line five, I think, is kind of one of the toughest lines. Unfortunately, you guys can see so much. You guys can just, you really are visionary and you can see not like into the future, but you can see what could be. And it's such a beautiful place to have this idea of what could be. What happens on the shadow side is that people will often, these external people will feel into what they want you to be. So they will project what they want onto you. And that's not who you are. And so what happens a lot of times with line fives is you'll retreat like the hermit. You will go away because you can't be around people who are constantly telling you you're this, you're that, you're this, because of what they are thinking, what they are feeling, what they want you to be. But when you can let go of that, when you can know who you are at your heart, at your soul, that is when you are your best. Line six. So line six has three parts. So the role model, I think, is a great line, but the reason why I think Karen chose adept is because of these three cycles. So the three cycles are up to about 30. You are a line three. You are experiencing everything under the sun, doing this, doing that. This is really important. You're experiencing everything you can think of. But then you get to about 30 to 50 and you retreat for a while. We call it up on the roof. So think of this on like up on the roof where you're just looking down at the world, you're reflecting on everything that's happened in your life and figuring out what makes sense for you, what really works, and how do you want to show that to the world moving forward. And then once you hit about 50 and over, that is when you come out of your shell. That is when you come out. You are ready to share with the world everything you've learned through your experiences and your reflections. What can happen is, for one, line six is you really don't get clear on your purpose of how to use your purpose properly until about 50. And that can be so hard because line six is a lot of times you can be kids, single digits, 7, 8, and you're like, my purpose is, and when it doesn't work out, you can get very upset. And so that can be super tough. The other thing that this particular line can do is get in a place and tell people, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this. And that's not what we're really looking for. A role model doesn't tell people, they live it. And when people ask where that came from, that's when they share their experiences. So it's not about telling people what they should and shouldn't do, even though you really feel that, because that is a shadow of the line six. What you are really here to do is help people make better decisions in the area that is important to you. So there's that one. And I spend more time on this because it's one of my favorites. So I love line ones. Or I love all the lines, but I especially love line 1 and 4. So let's talk a little bit about authority. So everybody has an authority. The sacral we spoke to, if you are a generator or manifesting generator, you are automatically a sacral. It's basically you are trusting your gut, whatever comes up for you. If you have gotten to a point to where you get too much in your head, reach out to me. I actually have something that I do with my clients to help them get back in connection with their sacral using yes no questions so that you know what works for you, so that you can pay attention to your gut. So where maybe your gut tells you something, you're like, oh, I don't think that's right. What I want to do is get you to the point to where you know when your gut is telling you what's correct. So that's kind of that sacral feeling. You just feel it in your gut. Splenic's a little different. So we'll often talk about splenic as, oh, trust your gut, but it's different. It's like this inner voice that just out of the blue will say, go do this or go do that. So I use it as an example as you're driving on the freeway and your exit's like 2 miles up, but this voice says you need to get off here. And you're like, I'm not getting off here. That's like two away. But then you find out there's an accident. So that inner voice was telling you, that intuition was telling you, get off so that you didn't get stuck in the traffic. So this splenic can be a really tough one because it's such a tiny little voice, and until you get really good at controlling that and hearing it properly, it can take time. So just be aware of that one. I am a splenic projector, so that intuition, that instinct of feeling into things, I struggle with that, just like I'm sure most of us do, because my line one on the other side is a researcher. So you can see there's a lot of conundrums a lot of times in the charts, and that's one of the things we try to help people with, or at least I try to help my clients with, is how to work with those conundrums so that you can get the best possible out of everything going on. Emotional, a lot of people have the emotional authority. And I talk to my clients about this. In fact, all three of my children have emotional. And this is what we call riding the wave. So you want to experience your emotions. You don't want to cut it out. Like if you're angry, let yourself be angry. It doesn't mean you're angry around people. You can go into another room, but feel that emotion. Let it go with you. Ride the wave. They last about 60 to 90 seconds and just be in it. So for emotional authorities, do not ever make a decision when you're either really high or really low. You want to make it in a neutral place. So a lot of times we get super excited about something like, yes, I'm going to do this right now. This is so awesome. I love it. But then like the next day you're like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said okay to that. That is when you want to just feel the excitement, be in it, give yourself time. You can give yourself, maybe it's only 5 to 10 minutes, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a day or a month. Take your time, ride the wave. Don't make a decision unless you're in a neutral place, because otherwise you will regret your decisions down the line. Finally, we have ego, mental, self projected. These ones are kind of go together. So you just have a tendency to get more in your thoughts in your brain on these two specific ones. So just kind of keep that in mind, that if you're like a mental or ego authority, that has to do with the will center. And if you're a self or projected, that has to do with orchestrated or projector authority, which really means you're looking into yourself to trust yourself, which again, take time, think it out, don't rush. Okay. So next up are my favorites. I love the gates and channels so much. But I'm not going to go a lot into this because there's so much involved. As you can see, we have 64 total gates. These are the numbers that are within each of the centers when they are connected to another gate. So in this case, if you were to go to at the top, the head center, and then down to Ajna, we have the 6447. That is a channel. There's 36 total. You might wonder, like, how's that possible? It should be 32. Well, we have a few down in one area that connect in a few extra spots. So like gate 34 has three different channels that it's associated to. So that's just kind of one of those things, along with gate 57. So, but the gates really go into detail more so about different characteristics, personality types. They really go into how we work. So when they are defined, again, defined, they'll be circled a lot of times for you versus open. And defined are the ones you really I think you want to focus on. We need to focus on all of them, but those are going to be the ones that are most prominent to you in your life. And when I talk to my clients and we go through it, usually I get a lot of, oh, oh, yes, got it. Channels go an even deeper spot because you're now connecting two together. And these channels can really put in an extra energy because they're attaching two centers together. And so you're pulling the energy from both of these centers into this channel. And so gates and channels are so fun for me. I love that part. And that is often going to be my focus when I do readings with my clients. And one of the reasons why I do the video beforehand. Also, just so that you know, I also put together a blueprint that I do for my clients. And so I always make sure that the channels are in there. I don't do gates because most of us have had a lot of gates, but most of us don't have more than a few channels. So I know a few people have 6 or 7, but for the most part, it's just a few. So with that said, you will get that when you do a reading. You'll get the recording of the reading. And if you are a line 1 or line 2 and you're just thinking, God, I don't know that I want to do a reading yet, I want to do more research on it, I offer a basic human design reading with your specific information. So it's more general. It doesn't do gates or channels. It stays very specific to authority profiles, your energy type, and your strategy, which are all the fundamentals. But if you want gates and channels, you'll want to reach out. But if you want to start with the other, go ahead. You can, that's $55. You can do that first. That's actually how I got started. I got interested in human design, but I did one of these paid general readings so that I had the basic information before I went into a reading with a person. Okay, so from there, let's look at my chart again. Okay, so we know that I'm a projector, so I like to guide people, I like to teach, I like to see the best in everybody. And that again can sometimes be a shadow because when we always want to see the best, we're not always as good about seeing ourselves. The strategy is to wait for the invitation or to be recognized. Instead of reaching out and telling people, oh, I have this or I have that, you want to give them a chance to come to you and talk to you. Splenic authority, that intuitive voice in my head. Again, the superpower is success, the shadow is bitterness. All the other things down from the digestion down to environment, those are all variables, and that is a whole other situation. So, if you ever want to do multiple readings, I offer that because I have some people who really want to spend time in one part, and then another one they want to spend part like understanding the planets with the gates and so on. So, and then the next one, they'll want to understand all these variables that are just fascinating to me. So, if that is something that you're interested in, you probably want to get the human design package of 3, which is a discount. And then you'll see your channels are at the bottom. So, when I then talk to my clients, I will go through each of those channels so that you have a little bit deeper understanding. So anyway, the way that you can get a hold of me, Michelle at Lotus Sage Coaching, you can always visit my website, lotussagecoaching.com. For those of you wondering exactly what it is that I do, I started out as a sexual empowerment coach. I moved into, after learning human design, I moved into also focusing on authenticity and all of us understanding who we really are. So I have what I call the SAGE method, which is I support my clients to start. I let them talk. I listen to them because there's a lot of us out there that we have to talk. Generator types, you don't feel the need to talk. You're like, just get me my yes no questions, let's move on, I don't need all the details. Manifestors, projectors, and reflectors, we need to talk. And so I give my clients the space to get out certain things that they need to do so that they can really get honest about what it is they really want and who they want to be. From there, we spend time on what I call awareness and alignment. So, awareness in understanding our past patterns or current patterns that are not working, and then getting in alignment with where we want to be. From there, we take our time and we give ourselves grace, because you know what? Patterns, habits, they take time to break. I've read that it can take 61 or 62 days to break a habit. So give yourself grace when you go back. You know, don't get so angry that you made a mistake and you give up. It takes time to do that. In fact, I've been healing from a divorce for the past 2.5 years. So I'm not saying that you're working with me the whole time, but I'm just saying give yourself some grace within this. And then we finish with empowerment. That is what this is all about, empowering you to be your best self, to be who you want to be strong in your boundaries, to be strong in what you allow into your life, and to be your best self. With that, with my line 1 and my line 4 of being very much about being a stabilizer, researcher, being about safety and security, I use practical steps. And I'm not sitting there telling you stuff that is woo woo. It's going to be practical, it's going to be things that work for you. And we're going to help you rediscover your value and your self worth, because really, when it all comes down to it, when our value and our self worth is strong, we are strong. So, with that, if you have any questions, reach out. You can go to my website and look up human design, more so if you so desire. I look forward to having you guys reach out. Also, if you watch this and you're like, man, I want a reading, with me, go ahead and put in the code 25 off to get $25 off your first reading. If you prefer to just do the paper side first, that is $55, and you can do that after you get your chart. So, with all that said, thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry this was long. You can imagine, with me moving as fast as I was through this stuff, how much in a reading can happen in that 60 minutes. So, that is it. Wishing you guys all the best, and be your best empowered selves.